Good afternoon. Welcome back. Kent Boehm with 9 Business Group and Elevate Your Business Chat. Joining us today is Steve Whittington. Steve, welcome. Please introduce yourself, your company name, and most importantly, what makes your company unique and different. Steve, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm Steve. I'm the president of Roadmap Agency. And what I would say is what makes our agency different is that we focus on the entire go-to-market function of an organization. So we're not specialists in just marketing or demand generation or implementation of a website or CRM. It's really that entire journey of how do you find, get, keep, and grow your customers.
Fantastic. How long have you been in business?
Well, Roadmap's been around for about 3 years. We're in our third year, but it's an amalgamation of several other agencies that were pushed together to create Roadmap, on which I became the president of. So combined, those other agencies, I think the longest was around for about 11 years. The other one was around for about 5 prior to Roadmap.
Are they, just a bit of a sidebar, are all those different agencies now under one roof and you truly expect your clients to come and go through the entire process? Or is it more of a department where I could come in and buy this service and that one, but not the other 3?
So what we find is a lot of clients come to us for one of our main pillars. But then as we start to develop that pillar, we're asking questions and exploring other areas, and they realize that support is required in all those areas. And we approach, so if we're going to develop a website, for instance, somebody comes to us to develop a website, well, how does that fit into your go-to-market function? How does that tie into your sales function? How does that tie into your CRM? Well, you don't have a CRM. Okay, what's your sales process? Where is this in the lead gen process? Oh, okay. So like when you start asking those questions, what's your strategic narrative? What's your brand? What's the problem you're trying to solve? You start to ask all those questions, and then it sort of quickly expands really fast. Suddenly somebody comes to us to CRM, same idea. Somebody comes to us to brand, we're like, well, where is this going to be used? So yeah, there's always entry points on one of the pillars. But what's happened is we've gotten known for what we're doing more and more. Because the previous agencies, one was a brand specialist, one was web development and CRM specialists. But as Roadmap sort of gets known more for the go-to-market enablement, we get people coming to us for that entire function, right?
Cool. Looking forward to learning more about that as we go. But before we get there, we're going to go back in time a little bit. In your career, both personal and life, you've done some pretty unique, amazing things. Please share with us kind of that big accomplishment that you shared with me the other day. And I guess where I want to take that is I want you to introduce that as part of your story, because I think it's going to be a bit of groundwork for some of the questions we ask. So share some of the accomplishments you've had in your climbing life, if you will.
Yeah, sure. I mean, behind me is a picture of Denali, which is one of the 7 summits that I've climbed. I led a team to the top of that one. That's in Alaska. It's the biggest, coldest mountain on Earth, but the tallest one is Everest, and I've climbed that. A lot of people really like when they do find out that I've climbed Everest and summited. They want to hear that story. They want to know the why. They want to know the connection to how does mountain climbing connect to business. And I've always looked at when you want to work with someone, bring someone on to be part of your team, you need to see that they've got some sort of passion in their life. And what is that passion that drives them? Because if that passion should connect or create or enable them to have passion for what they do in their professional life. And I mean, it could be like, they're into golf, or they're into knitting, or they're into ultimate frisbee, whatever it might be, crosswords, whatever. They have a passion for something. So if they've got that edge, that passion, that means they have the capacity to have a hard passion for something else in business. So that's one of the things I look at. But when it comes to mountain climbing or climbing in general, the goal setting and the commitment required to summit or to reach the top of a 750-foot face, whatever it might be, is tends to be at a more extreme level than a lot of other types of passions. And and so like there's a drive there that business people want to know, like, well, how do you have that, and or why do you have that, and how does that relate to business? Well, the short answer is that drive for passion for climbing mountains in my life relates over to a drive for doing business. And a great example is even this week. I came off a mountain last weekend, and it didn't go well, and I was quite tired this week, and I had to get something prepped for a client. So I got up at 4 a.m. and did the work. And part of my head was like, well, that's not that big a deal. I mean, I ended up being stuck on a mountain for a night on a ledge at over 3,000 feet up. So, I can certainly get up at 4 o'clock and finish this off for the client meeting at 9. No big deal. Right. So, and really what it comes down to is like a quick reference is, there's hard, then there's hard. And so a lot of things in business aren't really that hard for me, because of some of the things I've done in the vertical world. I'm not going to lose my life. I'm not going to lose any digits. I just got to put some effort in and, do the old college try, and you're going to be fine. And so I don't get overwhelmed that easy as a result of what I do. My passion outside of work. I'm pretty stable, and I don't really get bothered by much because, there's, when you've done real hard things in another area, stuff that's hard in this area just don't seem as hard. So that's kind of one thing that relates really quick.
Absolutely. How long did it take for you to prep? And I want to tie this back to kind of business planning as a coach. I meet all kinds of entrepreneurs who start a business after a good idea pops in their head, and 3 weeks later they go into business, or a year, don't even write a business plan. But for you to tackle Denali or Mount Everest, when did that start? Was that a month out? No. Was it a year out? Like, how long did that preparation take for you to get ready for it? And how would you, I guess, paraphrase that or take it back and give advice to a startup business owner and saying, this is what it takes to prepare and summit and do this?
Right.
How do we put more effort into prepping to start and grow a business?
So, yeah, for sure. So, Everest was a 10-year journey. That's the truth. But the real countdown started 3 or 4 years out of Everest. So I was climbing, building skills, building independence in the Alpine, had become an amateur leader for the Alpine Club of Canada, trained in various different areas. And then I got the idea that as I started to do bigger mountains and higher altitude mountains, that I wanted to climb Everest. So the first thing that I did was pick the team. So you have to have the right team to go with you. And so it was a backup. And then we had to, as a team, work on several mountains to build up to Everest. And so we did a pile of mountains together, including the one behind me. That was a pre-Everest climb. So if we couldn't get up that one as a team independently, we weren't going to do Everest. And so pick the team, which included, like recruitment. I flew down to Tennessee, and the guy knew that I was coming to try to convince him to go do Everest. And, at 3 a.m, he said yes, after fortifying him with some courage, some liquid courage. So at any rate, you pick the team, and then you have the basis of the team, and you build that team, and then you build the skills and the capabilities that you need to be able to accomplish the task. And all mountains are a project. And in fact, I could open up my computer and you can see probably about 65 different project plans for the various different mountains that I've climbed. The one I did last weekend has a project plan. It's about 5-6 pages. You have the team, you have the list of the equipment, you have the time frames, you have the risks, you have all that stuff, you have the skills that's required. For the last one, it was really upfront with the person that I picked, who happened to be the guy that I'd done Everest with. I'm like, we have to be able to simulclimb. Here's the skills that are required, right? And he's like, okay, I did this in the last little while, because we hadn't climbed together for about 3 years. So when you think about all that, right? Like there's a complete project, there's a plan, there's a hierarchy. On Everest, there's an expedition leader. I was a lead climber on the mountain, so I was a lead on the mountain, but I'm reporting to the expedition leader. There's support staff, all that stuff, all the equipment, all the timetables, all that has to be in place so that you have a chance of success. And, I haven't summited every time. And what I have to say is that for most times, sometimes it's weather, you get bad luck. But most times when I didn't summit is I didn't put the work in properly to plan and train to make sure that we had the capabilities to be successful. So when I relate that to business, because I have started another business other than Roadmap recently, but that was an 18-month ramp up. Okay, so let's explore the market. Let's figure out a minimal viable product. Let's test the minimal viable product in the marketplace. Let's then get together what we're going to have for a plan for funding that we need. What's our annual operating plan? What's our total addressable market? What's our total realizable market? What's our, what do we need first? What are the milestones that we need in place? Get together a memorandum of understanding with the partners so that we all agree to this kind of stuff, then actually incorporate, then get the brand in place. What are all the things we need first before we launch? So it's, this last one launched in June, but honestly, we started the discussion. So that was June of 2023. The discussion started in January of 2022 before we actually got to market. And same with Roadmap. There was a lot of pre-discussion before we actually took it to, and that one was fast. That was 9 months to get it to market. In my opinion, it was fast, but that was more because I had established businesses to push together. So when it relates to, I'm a big planner. If you don't plan, you're planning to fail. And the plan isn't the be all end all. It gives you something to measure against, something to adjust against, something to learn from, and so that you can increase your chances of success. So all the mountains that I've done, a lot of plans, training, all that stuff goes into it. All the people that are with me, we understand it. When we're on the mountain, we have a rhythm, we have a cadence. And so like every hour you stop and you water, food, whatever, and then you fuel up and then you keep moving. There's check-ins like, hey, can we stop now? No, it's not top of the hour. We got to keep moving. We got a timetable. So like the same thing, and I beat that drum with businesses that I'm in. There's a Monday afternoon meeting where we're setting the projections and the requirements for the week. There's the leadership team has meetings, and it's like, okay, we review financials one week, review HR the next week, review sales. Like there's a cadence. You beat the drum. So and a lot of that honestly was built from all my years in the mountains. Success was about continual progress and consistency, and having a plan that you're marching out. And then of course you have to have the ability to change. You can't be rigid. But when you have a plan, you have something to measure against, and then you can adjust. So that's a long answer, but that's really it. The two correlate so much.
Yeah. You said something in the middle there about stopping, retreating, or just even a setback. And I want to go back to that and kind of go, we're inundated in today's world of social media, and everybody wants to talk about the overnight success. And I say, it's like, yeah, overnight success, 20 years in the making. We just happen to run a good PR campaign on that day. There has to be points and times in your career, both on a hill and in business, where there was a setback. Can you tell us a little bit about how you processed those setbacks and where you had to, and you alluded to it before, even last weekend on your most recent climb, you didn't summit. How do you view that, and how do you handle setbacks, and what does it mean, and how can we share that with other entrepreneurs who, in reality, every entrepreneur is doing something they haven't done before. So there's likely going to be setbacks. Like you climbing a mountain, you haven't done it before. So how do you handle setbacks?
So again, there is a plan. So just referencing the mountain last weekend, there's a turnaround time for safety. And as we were climbing, and we're doing vertical climbing, I'm realizing we're not going to summit based on the time we're at. So you know what? Now we have to move to plan B, which is how do we get down? And so we have to get to a certain part of the mountain to be able to safely get down, to rappel down. So did I view that as a setback? No, I've gained the skills and experience that if I so chose to, I could go back and train appropriately, and I could summit that mountain, better weather conditions, that kind of stuff. So it's progress as opposed to like perfection of doing it the first time. So there's a number of mountains that I've attempted that I didn't summit the first time. I've got a pretty high success rate, like of first time summits, but not all the time, right? And then in business, it's the same thing. It's progress, not perfection. So you're going to have a setback, like you lost that sale. Well, why did you lose that sale? or you missed your projections for the month. Well, why? What happened? You look back at, well, what's follow the tunnel here? What happened? Well, we didn't get the revenues. Okay, well, did we get enough actual times to pitch? No, we didn't. Okay, so then we didn't get enough leads. Okay, and then the ads didn't convert, or we didn't do this many outbound calls, or whatever it might have been, right? So you go back and you rewind the tape. Well, what happened? Oh, well, Steve took 2 weeks off in July and he wasn't around to actually make outbound calls. Oh, okay, so we didn't even have the time. Okay, so our projections were actually wrong. Like so at any rate, I don't view most things as setbacks. I actually view them as learning opportunities. Because when I've seen something, when I've set an objective and you measure against it and you don't hit it, then you learn why, so that you have a chance of hitting it the next time or exceeding it. And that's my mindset. I expect to not hit things. I don't know when, but I certainly want to know why when we don't. And that's, so I really don't have that mindset of setbacks. I don't get too fussed by that kind of stuff because I do expect it to happen.
So part of your planning is actually anticipating setbacks and fully expecting that you're going to encounter things that maybe not part of the planning you're going to have to adjust for.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I think you were reading the question, so you jumped right into mindset. What does it take mentally, physically to climb Everest, to do these things? Because I think about the little things that annoy my 15-year-old son, or the little things that annoy me when we go about our daily life.
Yeah.
Climbing, 31,000 feet? Is that what it is for Mount Everest? Right?
29 or 29.
How many?
29,029 feet.
Talk to us about mindset and what it takes to kind of have that discipline, both, I think, in the training, but also in the middle of it. Because I think, me personally, we as human beings spend a lot of time in our own head. And sometimes that's great, but sometimes the thought that stays in there probably isn't the one we should be focusing on. So how did you learn the skills over time and hone them to get better and better at the discipline and the focus?
So let me be clear. When it comes to when people find out that I've climbed mountains and kind of stuff, they're like, how do you get into it? Because I'm from a northern Manitoba mining town. Okay. But if you reflect back from where I've come from and you actually, you look back on the dots, you can really see how they connect. So I grew up on a lake. Most of a good part of my life was without running water, without electricity. I had a trap line. We commercial fished. My dad was a guide. We had the float plane tied up. We had, fly in tent camps that I had pulled out of school to go set up the tent camps, the canvas tents. Pulled out of school in the winter to go out like 100 kilometers by snow machine to cut ice out of lake to put in the ice shacks. That's how I grew up. I grew up in the wilderness. And then I became an initial hell attack firefighter, which is really topical right now because of all the forest fires. I was a dope on a rope for many years. Rappelling out of helicopters, fighting forest fires, and had a few times where a few brushes with death there. So that's how I grew up. That's how I paid for university, being a firefighter. So when I did reach the mountains, like when I moved from Manitoba to Alberta and I saw them, well, it was a natural thing to actually go out there and explore them. And so, but I had all that before I got there. And so, like, when you connect all those dots, you've had that mindset of being outside in extreme situations, living in tents in the winter as you grew up, and facing life or death situations as a firefighter. And so, mountains just were fun. But then my personality is such that I like to push things and learn things and get to the edge. So I kept chasing, kept pushing, and that led me to the top of the world. So how do you train for that, though? I already had a base of how that kind of thing. But when it came to the training and the mindset, as I pushed things further, I understood the consequence of what I was doing. You can stop running on the treadmill at 12 degrees incline because you're tired, or you can keep pushing through it because you need to increase your VO2 max, because the mountain isn't going to let you stop. The mountain isn't say, it's okay, Steve, don't worry about it, right? Like, it's not, the mountain is like, it's always there. It's unforgiving. It's a great equalizer. And the challenge is that in some cases the equalizer is that you're not coming home. And I've seen that. I've seen dead bodies on a lot of mountains. I've seen people die on mountains. And all the great mountains that I've climbed, actually, there's been deaths while I've been there. So you've got that constant reminder. And when you're training, you know what the consequence is. So it's a great motivator. Now, the challenge is putting that passion and that kind of level of motivation into your regular everyday life. But when it comes to staying disciplined for the great climbs that I've done, the great mountains, I always kept that in my mind. That's why I was doing it, because as the lead climber, I needed to have that level of physicality to be able to get to the top. And there was a consequence that drove me. And having planned out, here's the steps, here's what I needed to do. And one of the things that my wife was really, as she met me, she met me and she started to learn that I always was willing to turn around when it was unsafe. And so she knew that I had that kind of, like, when I knew I was over my head or something like that, I'd turn around or I'd stop, like I did last weekend. It's like, safety first, summit second. So you've got those kind of regulators in place so that you can always come home to what matters. And that's part of it, like the training, the discipline, like what you need to do to be able to summit. You've planned it out. And so if you don't have those boxes checked, you shouldn't go. And I had that regulator in place that if I wasn't ready, I wouldn't go, kind of thing. So that kept my training on track. So.
Was there any point in time where the mindset, the discipline wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough? And what did you do about it? Or maybe you took something for granted and you weren't able to accomplish what you wanted, so you really had to go back to the drawing board and rethink the whole thing.
So it really comes down to in business or in the mountains is when I've gotten lazy about my planning. And so then you underestimate what you're up against, and or you get overconfident, lazy or overconfident. And those two things are, in the mountains, they could be killers. And in business, they kill an opportunity. So, for this call, I prepped for it. I had a client call prior to this, and I could have rolled into it, but I had done significant prep for it. Prep actually for several weeks, and then prep yet before the call just to double check and, make sure my shoes are tied tight and all that kind of stuff, double check your knots. So, being prepared gives you the greatest chance of success. So yeah, that's really what it comes down to is that mindset is when you allow overconfidence, or you get lazy, and that's the truth of it. Like, it's really that I can't call it any other two things. I'm either overconfident, or I'm lazy, and I know it. And if I don't say those two words, I'm being inauthentic to you right now, because it's only those two things. And so, you pay the consequence. You mess up the meeting because you were overconfident or you didn't prepare for it. Or you go in climbing and you're overconfident and it's way too hard and you get scared and you maybe get through it, but you're like, if you're really authentic with yourself, you're like, you know what? You should have trained a little harder there, Steve. You got through it, but guess what? That wasn't pretty cool. Or you're underprepared. And there are times where you just have bad luck. And that's fine. You recognize for what it is. But generally those are the two. And I think if we're all honest with each other, we sort of fall into one of those camps sometimes. And there's a consequence. That simple.
I think that's a great analogy. I think it really is lazy or overconfidence. Two-part question. I want to ask it. The question is, if there was a pirate in your world in the weeks leading up to a climb and a pirate in your business, what are they stealing? So on the climbing front and what you've accomplished, if there was a thief in your world, what would they be stealing from you before a climb? And then in your business today, what would they be stealing from your business?
So for me personally, I'll just say for me personally, and then for the business, there's something different. Well, actually for both, it's the same thing. So two things. on a personal level, when you're leading up to a climb or when you're pushing an initiative in business, it's a thief would steal my conviction and courage. And so it's like I no longer have the conviction to push it through in whatever the case, in the alpine or in business. Or sometimes it's a big scary thing, so it's courage. So somebody comes and is able to steal my conviction and courage. And in fact, I said it on the weekend. It's like, we just got to keep pushing through it. We can't let ourselves go into the coward's cave here. We gotta get going. And so that's the one thing. And the other thing is that I said that what's the first thing I did when I declared that I'm going to go climb Everest? Is to pick my team, right? So if a thief's going to steal anything from my mountain climbing or my businesses, it's going to be my team, my people. And I shouldn't say it's like I'm part of that team. It's like our people kind of thing, right? So like that's what, in a professional service organization, your product is people. And so, that's the most important thing that we have is how do I support those folks? How do I enable them and give them the tools that they need to be successful, and give them the conviction and courage so that they can reach higher and push harder and deliver results that the clients nor them expected they were able to do. And that's really what it comes to. So somebody would steal conviction and courage and people.
And it applies to both. Absolutely. There was a book out there somewhere, somehow, I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head. But the idea is, how do we get 1% better every day? It sounds simple on paper. Sure, I can get 1% every day. But I think as we do this in life, we realize that it doesn't always happen. So were there points in time where you needed to get better and you worked hard either in business or for a client, where maybe your progression and advancements in skill or knowledge wasn't quite fast enough? Or what'd you do with it if you weren't getting on track to getting better every day, if you will?
So I could open a drawer here and show you, I think it's like 72, maybe 84 books that represent a month each of journaling that was very specific with questions every single day. I did it for over 6 years, maybe it was 7, until I decided to stop the program. So I was really dialed into this whole 1% better kind of thing. And of course it didn't always happen. So I measured metrics on myself. But what you did though, when you had setbacks and fallbacks, because it happens all the times, is you have to give yourself the grace to reset. And you have to have a peer accountability coach that's reviewing the metrics with you. And that's what, let me be clear. I've had a number of climbing coaches in my life. I've had a number of business coaches in my life. I am a coach myself, firmly believe in coaches. So when I'm measuring metrics on myself, I have to have an accountability coach, because you just won't be as accountable to yourself as you need to or should be. So
our eyes are a bit rose colored when we're looking at our own numbers.
You just, that's okay, whatever, right? So you have to have that accountability coach, but that coach and yourself have to have the grace to let you reset. And so then you reset another goal, again, progression, not perfection. And that's really what has always kept me going, is that having that end goal in mind. And there could be setbacks along the way, but you don't stop the end goal. And again, with the current businesses, that end goal has been stated, and we're all pushing towards it. We all agreed to it before we actually incorporated together. I got them to sign a memorandum of understanding, which had that end goal where we're going. So it's like, hey, this is the top of the mountain. Are we aligned to go there? There's going to be setbacks along the way. We might climb up, climb back down, climb back up, that kind of thing. But we got to know where we're going. And so to answer that question, again, setbacks happen. And the way to mitigate them is to have that end goal in mind and not lose that focus, and then be graceful and then reset and start climbing again.
Thank you. Talk to me about team communication, culture. It's not any one of these ventures. We can't build a business. We can't climb Mount Everest by ourselves. It's not just the team you're going up the hill with. It's not the team you employ, but we're human beings. We're surrounded by spouses and kids and family and external people. What can you share with us about that process? Because there's probably times where Maybe there was some fear or family members hesitation, whether those are distractions, mindset, but how does that work for you? And what did you need from your team to do literally the impossible outside your climbing team?
Right. So I'll go back to Everest. The only reason that I was able to climb Everest at that point in my life, and I was running up against a deadline, like I was getting, in my mind, too old to be able to go do what I wanted to do. So I had to line my life up to enable to be away from the world for 71 days, because that's how long I was away. And so line up my personal relationships with my wife. We didn't have kids yet. One of the things was she came to Everest Base Camp with me. She didn't stay there the whole time, but she came there for a good part, for parts of it. So that mitigated the time away to a degree. So you had to line up the financial commitment, which, with sponsors and that kind of stuff. And then you had to line up your professional commitments. And so I had to spend years backfilling and having people that could take over things so that I could be away that long. So, there's the training for the climb, there's the picking the people to go on the climb, and then there's all the other stuff that goes around it. When you start a business, it's the same thing, right? You have to, like, when I spoke with my wife about, hey, I'm going to stop the secure corporate job and I'm going to move back into entrepreneurship. Well, what does that mean for your income? What does that mean for this? What does that, let's talk through it. So you have to line up all aspects of the life to be able to go do and be an entrepreneur again. Same kind of discussion. How long is it going to be that you're going to be away from, the earning capacity you had as a corporate guy, right? Like that kind of stuff, right? So at any rate, it's the exact same discussion that you have to line everything up, and you really have to design your life to be able to accomplish these big things. So starting a business, being an entrepreneur, you need to design your life so that you can enable it to happen. And I think that's one of the challenges with being an entrepreneur is people maybe don't understand the commitment that it's going to take and how they have to design their life around that. Now, the interesting thing for me is, as an entrepreneur, I work less than I did as a corporate officer. So because I designed a life and designed an organization such that it's going to give me better work-life balance, which is kind of a rare thing, that's heard in this world. But there was a lot of time spent in planning and designing and talking with all the other people around in my life what this is going to look like, including the partners that I partnered with to put this together so that everybody understood what it is that we're trying to achieve. You really have to enroll and communicate with everybody about the impact that you're going to have when you go and do these types of projects. And it's a lot of discussions, it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of getting people on side with what you're doing. And if you don't do that, I don't know what it would be like if you don't do that, but I suspect it'd be a bit of a disaster. So,
were there some relationships that you had to park or put on hold because they weren't supportive, healthy, they weren't conducive to doing what you did?
Well, in general, I think for a long time in your life, you're probably doing that gardening anyway. The higher you climb, the less people climb with you. So, naturally people fall behind, or relationships, deteriorate, or they just don't work anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't have any dramatic stuff in my life where, I had to end this relationship because someone was so unsupportive. I think my way of being is such that, along the way, I've been always doing this kind of stuff. I've been pruning along the way. Toxic relationships have to be ended as soon as you understand they're toxic. And you have to have the tools to do it because they will hold you back. I've been fortunate where I haven't had much of that in my life, and again, I think it's because of a natural pruning that I've done over the years as I continue to do what I do. Certain people don't fit anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just what happens naturally.
Thank you. This is a bit of an odd question, so before I throw it there, I want to preface it. I've met thousands of business owners over the years who have accomplished a lot, and at times they don't always feel successful for various reasons. Do you feel successful? Have you always felt successful? And if you haven't, why or why not?
I feel successful now. And, I've got, my wife is doing great, and she does great things in her career as a physician. I've got 3 healthy kids. We have a balanced lifestyle now that COVID is over and I have my wife back. And and I've reached great heights in the physical sense, written a book, all that kind of stuff. So I've pushed myself and had a lot of accomplishments. So I feel successful. All that being said, I feel like my greatest quote success is still ahead of me. And that's where I'm going to be, engaged with my children growing up, engaged with growing businesses and supporting people developing within my businesses, and having a ton of fun, just sort of learning more, like, because I'm on a different path right now, right? So just continuous learning, and then eventually, finding some sort of vehicle to even have a more impactful way of giving back. So I do feel my greatest success is ahead of me. To get back to your question, did I always feel successful? When you look at the climb that occurred to get here, that was a struggle to success. And you look at certain high points along the way of things that you chased or things that you thought that were important. And really, if you're authentic with yourself, you're just filling a void. And, one could argue that all of the climbs that I did in my life was filling a void because I didn't have a family at the time. So that's one way of looking at it. And it's not entirely untrue, but it was representing, I was doing that, I was chasing that high, literally getting high to chase a high kind of thing, because certain other areas of my life were unfulfilled. And so, it's taken a while to get to this level of business maturity, life maturity, and understanding that success, this is such a cliche, isn't a destination, but it's a way of being kind of thing, a feeling of satisfaction. Success equals satisfaction. And that took me a while to get here. And I do feel I've arrived. But a lot of things that, why did I chase wanting to become a CEO? Because I have this way of being that I can, right? And what was interesting, another coach said to me after I let go of wanting to become a CEO, that coach said, well, now you can become a CEO if you want to, because you no longer have this obsessive need to be a CEO. And that's the truth, right? So, but that all, you wound up a certain way, and I wound up being I can. And as you're always that chasing that more, you're never satisfied. So then you're never feeling like you're successful. And so I have to say that I'm lucky in the current state of life that I'm in, and I'm surrounded by a great family and a balanced lifestyle, and that equals success.
Thank you very much. I love it. I'm just going to summarize it. I mean, success is a way of being. I think that it says it all. It's a mindset. It's your daily activity. It's routines. It's your habits. It's all of that. A bit more of a personal question, not really related to business, but in a way, because to be successful in business, we have to be mentally, we have to physically be part of the process. So on the physical side, how many times did you perceivably reach your physical limit of what you thought your body could capably do? And then how many times did you pass it, and how did you pass your perceived physical limit?
We have a saying, people that do alpine climbing and stuff like that, so you just have to, you get yourself into the pain cave, and, you're beyond where you want to be. Like, I can't think of the times. And what's interesting is you forget until you get back into it. You're like, oh, why am I doing this again? Gosh, why am I doing this to myself?
How do you forget that much pain? Come on, like,
Well, I mean,
How do you,
there'd probably be no children if women weren't able to forget childbirth, right? To a degree. So, mountain climbing is somewhat similar, I would say. But, you know, at the end of the day, though, the thing, is that, like, some people on Everest, for instance, the reason they expire is because they just give up. They just give up. They're done. They lay down, they're done. They, you know, and I know, I had a rough summit, because I got to the top and my oxygen mask was frozen. So I came down without oxygen, and I had to keep coming down. I had to keep coming down. I had to keep coming down. And so when I could see the South Col in the camp, at that point I was crawling. I was crawling into camp, and I'd sent Dawa ahead, and I said, "You need to find me another oxygen mask. I'm going to keep going." And so that guy was crawling. He came and he put an oxygen mask on me because his worked, and he was able to go down a little faster than me. And then I, hit it and went up, right? But then we were too weak to go down, and so we had to stay another night in the death zone. And then we go down, and you've all seen this picture in Everest of like massive lines. And I'm at the South Col, and I'm looking at the Lhotse face, and I'm just like, oh, there's hundreds of people coming up now, and I have to go around every single one of them in this weakened state. And you just have to keep going. You don't have a choice. So it's many times, that I've been in the mountains, I've hit a limit where I thought that was enough. And what's amazing is there's like your body will kick in adrenaline, and then what happens is you collapse when you're safe. I've had that happen several times. It's like, or the pain really starts to come when you're now safe. Your body knows when you're safe. Again, it happened on this last weekend. I was like full of energy, rappelling over 1,000 feet down and whatever, right? Although I'd shivered and not slept the entire night, I've now been up for, now over 24 hours. And how the heck is it that I'm full of energy and all this kind of stuff, rappelling down a face, totally aware, whatever, right? As soon as we get where it's safe, all of a sudden, just like, you just crash, right? The adrenaline's gone, right? So, our body is, I don't think mentally and physically, I don't think a lot of people know their limits, and I don't know my limits, to be honest. If you have the conviction to carry on and do what you need to do, you'd be amazed at what you can do. What's different about, here in my house where it's safe and that kind of stuff is, it's easy to not do the dishes at night kind of thing because there's no consequence, right? Oh, I'm tired, do them tomorrow, whatever, right? I don't have that choice in the mountains. And that's why I keep going back to the mountains, to remind me, to give me that edge to bring into this life. And that's really one of the reasons why I keep climbing, because it gives me an edge to remind me of what I can do.
I didn't have to ask you, and you offered it quite nicely. Your why you keep doing it. I think it's fantastic. How close do you think you came to your physical limit, and how many times? Like 40%, 80%, 99%? And I know it's unequivocal number. It's like, what's the pain threshold? But at the same time, I would say most human beings in North America never get above probably 20% of their best life. How close do you think you came to your max?
So I can give you like a number of times, and I would say, like, off the top of my head, I pushed myself to some level of max, probably at least 20 times, maybe even 30, right? And that's to do with various climbs, the real hard ones. And they're all kind of different as to what kind of limit that you're pushing, kind of thing, right? So with Everest, there's exhaustion, high altitude, that kind of stuff. With Denali, it's extreme cold, and you've got punishing loads. With other ones, it's like your hands are freezing because you're rock climbing, and you're wearing a puffy jacket and you're at altitude and your hands are numb, and so you're pushing through that and trying to keep them going. So you get to this different limit. As to like that edge, I guess it comes down to, it's like, okay, well, how close was I to like conking out, kind of thing, and not coming back is the way to qualify it. I think I think there was a few times where I was at that 80 or 90%, or I didn't have much left, and maybe even 95%. Like there wasn't a lot left. It was right on the edge. And then other times it was like the 60% or 40% or even 20% felt awful, but there was still a lot back in like in
I think
Canada.
crawling back to camp on your hands and knees probably might be a little higher than 90%. No.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I wasn't going to get there though. I just knew I had to keep
Okay.
going. I
Oh, really? Okay.
I wasn't too fussed about that.
Come on, in that whole journey, there was never a doubt that you weren't getting back to camp. You just literally you mentally saw a path that it was crawling left foot, right hand, and it was just a matter of time before you got there.
So that's the interesting thing about the conviction that I've had is I've always believed that I will get where I need to go. If I make the decision not to summit, that's fine. I'm not worried about getting down. It's going to be painful. It's going to suck. It's going to be a lot, like it's going to take a long time. I'm going to want it to be done, but I'm not going to not get down. Right. I don't, that has never entered my mind. Yeah, ever. I've had points where like the rope was stuck and we're like, we're like hundreds of feet up and the rope's stuck. We can't get it unstuck. Well, I guess I got to climb up the rope and press up the rope and figure this out and do it right. That's really going to suck. But I never had in my head that it's not going to happen. Right.
Good for you. I hope you continue from me to you and the people in your life find a way to share these stories. They are inspirational. I know that we've had some dialogue back and forth along the way. But just for you to be able to share that conviction, because we could all use more of it. We definitely could all use more of that conviction and self-belief. So however it found you and how you've embraced it, if there's part of that you can continue to share, please do, because our world definitely needs more of that. I think I know the answer, but my last and favorite question is, what do you want to be known for? When you look back, you're 62, 97, whatever it is, what are the 2 or 3 things you want to be known for?
Well, I hope that I'm known for being a great partner to my wife and a great dad to my kids. And then someone that helped folks become their better self. That's really what I want to be known for. Yeah. You've
been extremely gracious with your time. Thank you for allowing me to go off script a few times throughout the day. The story is amazing. Any shameless plug, where can people get more information on your company? Roadmap, Roadmap Agency. How do they find you, and who should find you more importantly?
Well, my ideal client is someone that is in the B2B, I call it the B2A space. So they have a little bit of B2C, but mostly B2B. And their revenue is at least $2 million, but generally under $50 million. And ideally, actually, probably under 10. And so we help that smaller, medium-sized enterprise get to where they need to be. And we come in as a, kind of like a fractional C-suite, fractional CRO, CMO, CXO, that kind of thing. Best place to find me is LinkedIn. Steve Whittington on LinkedIn. I'm very prolific on LinkedIn. Weareroadmap.com is our URL. You can find us there. You can see examples of our work. You can follow me with videos and stuff like that. Get to know me a bit better, and which I would encourage you to do. Get to know me better before you actually even say, hey, because you got to make sure that people you work with are people that you like and people that you trust. And that's what I'd hope for is in an ideal client is someone that we can have that kind of relationship where we like each other and we trust each other, and then we reach new heights together.
Awesome. Thanks again very much for your time, and looking forward to many more conversations to come.
Bye for now.